Stephanie Byra, and I am this year's Philadelphia PRSA president. So I welcome you all that are here joining us on this webinar tonight. So I wanted to bring to your attention that we have a couple other things coming up. We have sent out our Pepper Pots call for entries. So if you're not familiar, that is actually our big awards program that takes place in December. The call for entries is listed on our website under the Pepper Pots event, and that is where you can get recognized for all of the hard work that you've done over the last 12 months. And so take some time, check it out, see what you could enter and win a possible Pepper Pot or a ladle. That will be taking place later on this year, but the entries are going to be due later on this summer. And then I also wanted to mention next week, we have another event on Wednesday, July 29th at 11 a.m. to 12 noon, a little early lunchtime program that's talking about everything that's going on in the world right now with COVID-19 and the impact on communications and dealing with it in the present and planning for the future, which I keep saying we can't put anything in pen, it's all got to be pencil. So I look forward to hearing about that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Robin.
Hi, thanks, Stephanie. I'm Robin Friends. I'm a member of the PRSA Philadelphia chapter board, and my role on the board is working with the local PRSSA chapters. And so I want to thank all of you, chapter PRSSA professional and student chapter members, for joining us this evening. We're lucky to have Jennifer Armstrong to kick off our multi-session webinar series this evening. But before I introduce her, I'd like to give you a little background about this job search series. We've put together several webinars featuring top-notch local communicators from across the area, and the series is really targeting PRSSA students, recent grads, and early career professionals. Now, tonight's session with Jennifer really has, I think, a broader appeal to all levels of professionals. In terms of COVID, I think we all can, the subject of resiliency is very applicable to many areas of our lives. So thank you, Jennifer, for sharing that with us tonight. But to give you a taste of what's to come in terms of the series, we have speakers lined up from agencies from all sizes for one session. We have another program that's dedicated to working in the corporate world and academia, because Philadelphia is home to so many corporations and also institutions of higher learning. We have yet another event that's focused on working in the nonprofit and political arenas, and there's more. So look for dates and details on our website, social media channels, and also chapter email communications. And of course, be sure to tell your friends and colleagues to tune in and join us. The events are generally every other Tuesday night, subject to speaker availability and kind of the same time frame. So the next webinar is 2 weeks from tonight, August 4th, at the same time, 5:30, and it's entitled Graduate School to Go or Not Go. Jake Farbman, APR, another PRSA Philadelphia chapter board member, he's going to moderate, and he will have two guest panelists, one who went directly from undergrad to graduate school, and another who accrued work experience before earning his graduate degree. And they're going to share their stories and kind of the pros and cons of the different approaches. But tonight we have Jennifer Armstrong, Esquire. She's also CEO of Purposeful Networking. She's going to share with us her personal story of resilience and reinvention, along with tips for job seekers. Jennifer spent years going through recovery and finding her identity again. And today she shares her expertise by consulting, moderating, and giving keynotes and workshops. She's a frequent media contributor. She's been featured on CBS, NBC, PHL 17, Fox, Forbes, Huffington Post, Chicago Tribune, and Philly Mag. I don't think I missed anything, but clearly she's well regarded by the media. And within the past 2 years, she's received numerous awards. She was named the top small business influencer from Fit Business. She's one of Philly's 45 business influencers to follow on Twitter, and according to Philly Magazine, and she's named a Best Networker by Philly Current Magazine, and also a Power Woman from Mainline Today. And to top all that, she also did her first TED Talk this year. So with that, and just a little more background about her, she's an alum of 2 of our many academic institutions in the Delaware Valley. She received her undergraduate degree from Haverford College and her law degree from Villanova School of Law. She also holds certifications in event planning, nonprofit management, and conflict resolution. And with that, Jennifer, I'm turning it over to you, and it's all yours.
All right. Thank you so much. So as you heard, I'm Jennifer Lynn Robinson, and I'm so happy to be here today and share all of this great information with you. I know this is a very strange time for all of us. So as far as job hunting and networking and everything that you can be doing at this time, I think the main thing to keep in mind is that everybody's going through a rough time, and the way that you approach that is going to be the key to your success. I actually finished a book last night I wanted to mention. Maybe a few of you have read it. It's called Atomic Habits. It's by James Clear, if you haven't heard of it. And it's a very interesting concept. Obviously, there's a lot of good stuff in the book that I would recommend, but it's the idea of changing things 1%. So if you make a 1% change at the end of the year, you know, every time you make a little bit of a change, you will accomplish great big goals because you're always moving towards those goals. So I know at this time, I know for myself, you know, I think at the beginning of quarantine, I was super positive and productive. And then I'm sure like a lot of you, I hit a slump, you know, when is this going to end? How can I stay motivated? But, you know, think about that 1%. One of the examples that James gives in the book is if you're somebody that wants to work out more, he wants you to start with just getting dressed, driving to your gym, getting out of the car, going into the gym and driving home. And I actually heard him speak at the Pennsylvania Conference for Women. And when I heard him say that, I thought, how ridiculous is that? But the idea behind that, just so you know, is to get used to the identity of being somebody whose routine it is to work out or to go to a gym. So just getting into that habit can be such a propel for you to meet your goals. So I just wanted to mention that at the outset because, you know, I want to address the elephant in the room. This is not sort of a typical time. We're all going through this together. And so what I want you to look at is some things about resiliency, and we're going to talk about some tips for virtual networking and how to stay positive and motivated. What I'm going to do now is get my slides up and we'll share the screen. Let's see. Resilience matters. Give me 1 second. Okay, resilience matters. Awesome. And we're going to advance. Tips on building resilience. So I want you to know at the outset, I really, when I speak and we're not in a pandemic, I do not enjoy slides. I think, you know, I love the kind of interface with the audience. I love the interactiveness of being with people and engaging. But right now, like all of you, we have to do things virtually. So I want to make sure that we have some things up, but I also want to interact as much as possible. So some tips on being resilient, what we're going to get into today, I want you to think about being proactive, taking this time to invest in yourself, continuing to build and maintain connections. I think there's a situation right now that goes on where we're feeling lonely and isolated now that we're a few months in. And especially if you're somebody that's either out of work or maybe recently furloughed or job hunting, feeling like you don't have a lot to contribute, that maybe you don't want to get in touch with people, I encourage you to do the opposite. Take this time to really continue to build and maintain those connections and to stay positive. Establishing a routine as much as possible and just managing your expectations. I actually read today that generally it takes people about 5 months to find a job. And that's when we're not in a pandemic. So unfortunately, you know, the reality of the situation is in some cases, it's going to take a lot longer than 5 months to find a job. So if you manage your expectations and you know that up front, you won't set yourself up for failure as much. So just keep that in mind, that there are still things you can be doing. And there are some tips I'm going to give you of maybe some extra ways you can make money while you're looking for something full-time. But just know that you may be taking more time than you had hoped to find that job. So what I want to do is start with, I know they mentioned I gave a TED Talk, a TEDx talk recently, and the journey of that is very interesting. I have been trying for about 5 years to do a TEDx talk. So talk about trying to meet a goal. I had a near-death accident in 2008. At the time, I was a successful litigator and I was a newlywed. And I was a pedestrian on the University of Pennsylvania campus, and I was pinned under a truck, hit and then pinned under a truck. I almost died, and I had some very serious physical and mental injuries, including a traumatic brain injury. So that's really what took me out of the work I was doing. And I went through at least the next several years of significant rehab, surgeries, PTSD, just anything you can imagine that would go along with having to change every aspect of your life at the same time, and feeling like the path that you were on and everything you worked towards was taken away from you. The thing that's probably most relevant here is that I was told at Bryn Mawr Rehab I should reconsider a career that involved public speaking, that was going to be difficult for me, and it's really not something I should continue to pursue, even though I had done jury trials and been in front of audiences and used to doing hearings and having that kind of situation before my accident. So of course, what do I do? Like most people in that situation, I become even more stubborn, and I think, of course, I am going to do public speaking again. And I started a business where I am primarily doing public speaking. It wasn't always like that. I started doing consulting as I recovered. And it's now grown into a public speaking and training business, mainly with some consulting on the side. So I tell you all of that to say, I decided about 5 years ago, not only am I going to continue to do public speaking, I'm going to do a Tedx Talk. And I don't care how long it takes me, that's what I'm going to do. So it took me 5 years. And I finally got asked to do one about last December. And it's at the University of Arkansas. And I was actually scheduled to fly out and deliver it the week that the country closed down. So you can imagine my disappointment, everything I had worked towards, feeling like I was finally going to have that moment on the stage and come full circle. I'm doing a TEDx talk. I'm on the big stage with the logo behind me and the audience and the engagement and the feedback. And then I couldn't go. Couldn't fly there. Ended up giving this talk in an empty studio during the pandemic with no feedback, no audience, no engagement, no big stage, no logo behind me, nothing like what I thought it would be. But it really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, I still did a TEDx talk and I still accomplished my goal. So as you can see, this is just a screenshot I took, and it's really all about change and resilience and happiness, and how you move on, and why some people are able to move on when things happen in their life and other people aren't able to move on. And I also go into some ways I was able to move on and things that I had to work through. So if you have a chance, check it out. But I tell a little bit of my story because I think it's important to know where people are coming from. And for me, like I said, I had to change every aspect of my life at the same time. I couldn't get dressed on my own. I couldn't drive. I couldn't comprehend reading. I couldn't do public speaking. Pretty much anything you can think of was affected. And to start from square one like that, when your life is on a certain path, is tough. And I know some of you can probably relate to this in some way. It doesn't mean that you necessarily went through something as traumatic, but, I'm sure there are those of you out there who have gone through an illness or a death, or, I don't know, I know a lot of you are just graduating out there, so maybe not yet things like a divorce, but, there's definitely things that everybody goes through in life that are difficult. And those are those challenging moments where some people are able to work through it and step up and other people aren't. So this is one of those moments. We're in a pandemic, and I know, it may be a very awkward time for a lot of you to feel like you have to look for a job, or people are being let go or furloughed, and it can be very scary. So I just wanted to tell a little bit about my story, and where I'm coming from and why this is such a priority for me. Sorry about that. My slides will not advance. Let's see. I apologize. Interesting. I have never had this happen. Okay. And it's funny, we were doing a practice. We were doing a practice, and I was saying there was an issue that I had my very first webinar. And I think the issue is, no, that didn't work. I was trying to turn off my light. I have one of those great lights, so I have good lighting for my webinar. And sometimes that interferes with the screen sharing. Are you guys able to advance it at all, or am I the only one who has control of it?
Jess just said maybe your computer froze. I don't think because it's your control of your computer.
Okay.
Course technology, let's see.
Okay, I mean, I have them in front of me, so I can always go on without the slides, but let me try one thing so I don't waste too much time. I'm going to stop share and I'm going to share again, and let's see what happens. No, that did not work. Interesting. Okay, well, I don't want to waste anybody's time, so I'm going to keep going on. That's a shame. Okay, well, what we'll do is we will have everybody get the slides. Jess Campbell is requesting remote. Okay, let's see. Sorry about that. Oh, there we go. I don't know what happened. We went through this yesterday, and then we went through it again before this, and all the controls that were supposed to work did not work. So I apologize, but I don't want to waste time. So let's move on. We were on, I think, slide number 3, maybe, and right now it's on 6. I'm going to keep going. So the first thing I was going to talk about, which is slide number 4, is tips on connecting. So normally I give a lot of seminars on networking in person, but of course everything has moved to virtual right now. A lot of these tips will apply whether you are virtual or you're in person. So I think a lot of people struggle with networking because they think they don't have something to contribute, or they have to have a business reason to connect with somebody. And what I have found is that the best way to build relationships is to be personal. So you want to talk to people in a way that will open dialogue, and that people will feel like it's conversational and they will want to share more with you. And also think of it a little bit like a first date where, you know, when you're meeting people, whether it's online or in person, it's kind of that teaser. You know, people are deciding, is this somebody that I want to get to know more? Do I want to develop a relationship that's ongoing with this person, or see where it leads, whether that's for business or personal? So that's kind of what you're doing on that initial connection. So you want to ask open-ended questions. A lot of times I tell people it can be as simple as, how has your day been? How are things going? What are you working on? We're going to get a little more into what's maybe more appropriate to ask right now during the pandemic. But I think open-ended questions is something that would be what you want to think about when you're networking and you're meeting people, even online. You want to make sure that you're listening to people. So a lot of times, you know, when we see examples of bad networking, which I'm sure we all have, it's people that will come up to you and kind of have their own agenda. So, you know, maybe they'll tell you, here are the 10 things I do with my business. And, you know, let me tell you how great our services are, why you need a new air conditioner. And, you know, most people don't really care about that. They want to get to know you as a person. You don't even know if they have an immediate need for, you know, what you're putting out there, you know, what your expertise is, or what you're selling, or what your business is. So you really want to listen to people and see what they might need help with, and see if there are ways that you can help them problem solve, whether that's for a business reason or personal. So, you know, a personal example might be that you are talking to somebody online and they say, we actually moved here right before the pandemic and we have a newborn, and it's been so challenging to find a nanny now that we're going to go back to work part-time because we don't know anybody here, and we haven't had a chance to get to know anybody because, you know, we've been homebound. So maybe you know somebody that they can talk to, or maybe you can make an introduction of somebody that might help them with that. That's something that's going to be very valued, even though it has nothing to do with the business person, because you've listened to what is a problem for them and you're trying to make an introduction or help them solve it in some way. When you're networking with people, you want to be really mindful of time. So, you know, right now it's actually a great time to network because we're all pretty much at home. So that's something that's very different than the normal hustle and bustle of all of our schedules. But at the same time, you know, you don't want to take up too much time for people. So if you're trying to have kind of a one-on-one networking virtual session, or maybe you're trying to talk to somebody in an industry that you're trying to pursue, or a company that you're interested in, or you're doing an informational interview with a recruiter, what you want to keep in mind is being mindful of people's time. You know, keep it to an agenda and questions, and make sure, even if you feel like it's going well and things are really friendly, that you're keeping it to the time frame that was agreed upon. If it's supposed to be a 15-minute or a 20-minute or a 30-minute, make sure that you're mindful of that. If you feel for some reason it needs to go longer, ask the person, I see that we were supposed to end this at 3:30. Is it okay to, finish this up, or would another time be better for you? Always put that on the other person and make sure that you're not taking too much of their time. And another thing is continuity of relationships. So what I mean by that is, a lot of times you meet people, and more than 95% of people that you meet, actually people don't follow up. So follow up is a big problem with networking and building relationships. But let's say you're one of those people, and hopefully all of you out there are, because, actually, this is public relations, so you probably realize the importance of this, hopefully. But you realize the importance of follow-up. So maybe you're in the minority of people already that follow up. But then people say, what then? I connected with that person on LinkedIn, or I sent them an email and thanked them for the informational interview, or thanked them for the advice or the introduction. But how do I maintain this relationship? What possible reason would I have to get in touch with them again? So that's also very important, and we'll get a little more into that. But the continuity of the relationship, making sure that you are following up with people on a regular basis to continue to build that likability and trust, and be a resource for people and continue to get closer in that relationship. So we can advance to the next slide. And I think that's an exercise, yes. So I wanted to try to make this a little interactive. I know it can be tough since everybody's just kind of out there on the screen and you're only seeing my face. But I'm hoping that we can put things in the chat box, and I'm not going to make it worse by trying to, maybe I will wait for Jess to do it. My goal here, and I think we have another one within the session, is to have a little bit of interaction and ask you guys a question. So when I talked about open-ended questions and what might be more appropriate right now while we're in quarantine or during this crisis time, this is one that I think is a fun question to ask people. What have you watched or read during quarantine that's worth checking out? So hopefully Jess is able to see the chat box and maybe share a few responses with us. I would love for you guys to share. I will share, as we're waiting for some to come in, I will share. We just binge watched Hannah, which I don't think is a totally new series, but it was new to us. And I'm a big Bourne Identity movie fan, all of that series with Matt Damon. So this was sort of the female version of that. If that's something that interests you, we binge watched it and it was fantastic. So that's what I will share. Do we have any other responses coming in?
I'll jump in. It's Stephanie here, and I had watched, we're waiting for a couple others to pop through the box, but I had read American Marriage. It was on one of Oprah's lists at some point, and that was a pretty fascinating book. It was a good read, kept the pages turning, so.
Great. Yeah, I've heard good things about that. And actually, I noticed on Oprah's website, as I've periodically checked it the last few months, she has some lists up of different books to read that she recommends for the summer. And I think it is the Today Show, the Bush daughter, that's one of the correspondents on there. She's doing a book club series, and she's been posting different books to read, recommending to people. And I think doing some interactive sessions online to talk about those books, if that's something that interests anyone out there. Okay, if we don't have any responses, I can move on.
We have a couple that are coming through. Okay. Goldfinch, the Pulitzer Prize winning novel. Lisa said she couldn't put it down, and she can't decide if it's because she loved it or she could not wait till it was over.
Okay.
Thanks the latter. It was a great book, 200 pages too long. Unorthodox on Netflix.
That was fabulous. I watched that. Yes.
Somebody else, Melissa Tucker, weighed in and said The Mandalorian for any Star Wars fans. We've got House, MD, and Dexter. So yeah, got some good comments coming through.
Good. All right. Give me 1 second. I turned the light on that I think would give me better lighting because I thought that would help the shared screen, and it didn't. So I'm going to put it back on. There we go. Better. Yes, I look better. Okay. So thank you guys for answering that. So one of the goals I had with that, if you were at an event and it wasn't during a pandemic, some of the things I like to ask people is, If it's before a holiday, I like to ask people, you know, what are your plans for Thanksgiving? How are you spending the holidays? What's your favorite holiday tradition? You know, now that it's summer, you know, maybe not as many people are traveling right now, but, you know, in a regular summer, you might ask somebody at a networking event, do you have any vacation plans? Are you doing anything fun this summer? So because, you know, we're kind of not in that kind of time period where, you know, some people are still taking some road trips and things like that, but this is a better question, I think, to ask people, because pretty much everybody at this point has watched or read something, right? We've all been home for months. So you can guarantee that that will open a dialogue with people. So that's just one example I wanted to give, and we can move to the next slide. Okay, creating your own networking opportunities. So this is probably the most important thing I would love you to take away from this today. I think a lot of people feel like things will come to them. And even, you know, you heard at the beginning, you know, I contribute to a lot of media now, but all of those opportunities, I have orchestrated a lot of them myself, and not with PR. I would love to be able to hire some of you, you know, and hopefully you're all going to be stars, or you already are, I'm sure. But, you know, a lot of times as an entrepreneur, you don't necessarily have the budget to spend on PR or marketing or advertising, video, you know, whatever it may be. So you have to be choosy in how you're going to spend the budget that you do have and what's a priority. But I think it's really important to know that there's a lot that you can do on your own. You don't have to wait. You know, I was talking to somebody earlier today, and I mentioned one of my networking gurus is this Wharton professor, Adam Grant, which hopefully some of you know out there, and I'll mention him a little later too. But, you know, he is a worldwide name. So I am not Adam Grant. I'm not going to be Adam Grant, right? So people go to Adam Grant for opinions all the time. Are people going to come to me? Probably not. It doesn't mean I don't have something great to contribute. It means that I'm not a known worldwide name like Adam Grant. So I have to look for those opportunities and ask for those opportunities. A lot of times people don't ask. And if, you know, the whole, if you don't ask, you don't receive. So make sure that you're trying to create those opportunities for yourself and setting goals. And I have here, just put at least one call or virtual meeting on your schedule each day. I think during this time that can be really important. And I know, you know, I've had various times in my life before the accident I mentioned where I've been out of work or I've been fired, and I know how that can go. I mean, sometimes you feel like your day is going along, like you've already looked at the job postings, you've sent a few things out, there's nothing more to do. And, you know, it can be depressing, you know, I mean, you might be in like not in the best frame of mind. And a lot of obtaining a job is going to be about your confidence and your mindset. So I think putting at least one meeting on your calendar a day, whether that's a call or a Zoom or Skype or something, with either an existing contact in your network or somebody new that you're getting to know, or an interview, that's something positive because it'll anchor your day. And then you can schedule things around it and feel like there's some purpose, especially right now. I think we can all use that. So we're going to go to the next slide and talk about virtual networking. And obviously the first thing is the tip I just gave you. Let's go back one slide, I think. To slide number 6. Or I'm sorry, you know what? You were right. You were right the first time. Okay, so I want to talk about technology. Obviously right now, since everything is virtual, technology is key. Some of you out there may be great at technology. You know, most of you are just coming out of school, so you've grown up with technology. I did not grow up with technology. I'm in my 40s, so I mean the idea of learning all the technology can be more challenging for people that maybe didn't grow up with it the way that your generation did. And also, even if you're somebody that's really great at technology, we've all had to come to some kind of mastery of it overnight. Maybe you were used to using Zoom, but you weren't used to using WebEx and Skype and GoToMeeting and all of these other things that we've had to learn overnight. So, you know, make sure that you're cognizant of that, you know, that when you're getting in touch with people, where are they coming from? What technology are they comfortable with? You don't want to make people uncomfortable. Also, you know, some of you may have seen, I mean, I posted one today on my LinkedIn. There's a lot that's been coming out lately about Zoom fatigue, and whether that's Zoom itself or just other technology. I think a lot of people, including myself, are at a point where, we're tired of the technology. We wish we could meet people in person, but it's just not safe to really do that on a regular basis yet. But we're tired of the technology. So, when you are talking to somebody, especially if it's for a job contact, somebody that you're going to talk to, a recruiter or a company or somebody in the industry that's doing you a favor by giving advice or talking to you, ask them what type of technology they prefer. I'd love to set something up with you. Would you prefer we talk by phone or by Zoom or Skype or something else that you have in mind? And always go with what their preference is. Never go with what your preference is. Make sure that you're spending this time reconnecting with your existing contacts, but also use LinkedIn to prioritize and make introductions. LinkedIn is such a valuable tool. A lot of times on a day-to-day basis, we just don't have the time for it. This is a great time to try to build that into your schedule. And we have a slide a little later where I have some specific tips for LinkedIn. But, I think now that we have more time, and maybe you're not as busy and running from place to place as we usually are, it's a great time to build LinkedIn into your schedule. It's the kind of thing where if you can spend 20, 30 minutes a day on it, whether it's for job hunting or even when you find a job, it can really be invaluable to reach people that you might not be connected with, or to make introductions, or just to raise your visibility. At this time, it's really important to try to offer value to people. So, I've definitely had a lot of clients and people I've talked to over the last few months who have talked about this really isn't a time to be selling. And yes and no. I mean, it's not, if you have a business, it's not that you shouldn't be selling yourself or selling the business, or if you're looking for a job, you should be selling yourself, your expertise and what you can offer, and, why people should hire you. That's all still going on, but you do have to be mindful of what you're putting out there. Particularly, like, let's take the time at the beginning of June where, everything happened with George Floyd, and we were seeing the start of the progression of all these protests across the country and Black Lives Matter. Maybe that's not the time for somebody who sells high-end designer dresses to start posting about their trunk show. I'm just giving an example, but you want to just be mindful of things like that and make sure that you're putting, people say read the room. So read the room, make sure you're trying to offer value to people, and it's not all about selling. Even when you're looking for a job and you are trying to sell yourself, just be mindful of, kind of the climate of what's going on. I think for networking, it can be really good to have the talking points, and that goes back to some of the open-ended questions I mentioned, but also if you are taking someone's time to talk to somebody in the industry or at a company, make sure that it's not just can we just, talk for 20 minutes because I'm looking for a job and I feel like you'd be a good person for me to talk to. You don't want people to feel like you're wasting their time. Make sure that you either send out an agenda ahead of time, or if you don't do that, that you have specific questions that you want to ask people. Have talking points, make sure that's ready. And for those of you that aren't as comfortable with networking, that can also be very helpful so that you have that ready and you're not at a loss of what to say when you do talk to people. Really at this time, for those of you that aren't comfortable with networking, just like I would say if we weren't in a pandemic situation, look at the non-business virtual connecting opportunities. So are you on boards or do you volunteer for nonprofits? Maybe those boards or the people that you volunteer with aren't getting together in person right now, but I bet, a few months in now, they're getting together and doing a Zoom happy hour or a Skype session. If it's something that's a hobby for you, are you in a book club? Do you love to cook? I have a friend that does a business called What Am I Drinking? And she's been doing virtual wine tasting classes where people, have the wine delivered to their house and then do a happy hour with her and interact. And there are some regular people that are used to getting together. So all of those things that I'm talking about, no matter what it is, a hobby, a nonprofit, even just something that might interest you, there is a way to connect with people virtually for that, whether that's through a organization or a LinkedIn group or a Facebook group, or just connecting even one-on-one with some of the people that you're used to seeing regularly that you're not seeing right now. Those are all networking opportunities. You may not think of them as networking opportunities, but they're networking opportunities. So especially if you're someone that feels more uncomfortable doing sort of a more one-on-one, business networking session that's more traditional, look at those opportunities where you can connect and expand your network. And make sure if you are job hunting that you put that out there. Make sure that you are telling people, even if it's a book club, you know, by the way, I'm still looking for a job and this is what I'm looking for. If you know anybody that you think I should talk to, I would really appreciate an introduction. That's all you have to say, but make sure you're putting it out there. People can't read your mind. So, you know, you want to expand your network as much as possible, and you want to put that out there as much as possible, so that people can keep you top of mind for any opportunities that might come up. So let's move to the next slide. Okay, and what have we not covered here? Let's see. I mentioned Adam Grant, and he is like a guru of mine. If some of you aren't familiar with him, he has a couple bestseller books. The one that deals with building relationships is called Give and Take. It was his first bestseller. And some of these concepts, the loose connections, dormant ties, and 5-minute favor, come from his Give and Take book. So one of the things that you can be doing as far as who should you be networking with, especially during this time, is your loose connections. And loose connections are people that are not in your inner circle. So the people sort of on the outskirts of your network. People think that their opportunities or the next job opportunity or business opportunity are going to come from their inner circle, the people that know them best, and it's actually the opposite. People that don't know you as well have different networks, and therefore the opportunities are going to more likely come from those. So those are your loose connections. Your dormant ties are people that you were once close with that you're not close with anymore. And it doesn't mean because you've had a falling out. It means somebody that you maybe went to school with and now you're graduating and you won't be seeing them every day like you did before. Or maybe when you were younger, you lived in a certain neighborhood with your family and you have some childhood friends, but then your family moved and you lost touch with childhood friends that you had for a long time. Those are just some examples. So dormant ties are people you once had a close relationship with that maybe you've lost touch with. This is a great time to get back in touch with people. Why is it important to connect with dormant ties? Adam Grant says it's because you already have that likability and trust built up with them. So you don't have to build it and start from square one the way you would with a new connection or new relationship. So look at reconnecting with your dormant ties. And then this idea of 5-minute favors. I mentioned before, I wanted to give some more specific tips on how you continue to build and have that continuity of relationship. And the 5-minute favor that Adam Grant has in his book is a great example of this. A 5-minute favor is something that takes you less than 5 minutes, so it's not a big commitment on your part, but is of high value to someone else. What do I mean by that? That is things like making a virtual introduction, writing somebody a testimonial for their website or a LinkedIn recommendation unsolicited without being asked, sending somebody an article that might be helpful. Maybe you have a friend that says, you know, I'm really trying during this time to increase my followers or get better at Instagram, but I just don't know where to start. Maybe you see a resource for them. Maybe it's an online class, maybe it's an article, you know, just forward it to them. If you forward it to them, it takes no time, but it really showed that you were listening to the problem that they had and that you were trying to offer something to help them solve it. So those are some examples of 5-minute favors. I think another thing that could be really helpful during this time for networking is to curate your own events. So this doesn't have to be complicated. You know, I have a friend who's really great at this. Literally just every month or so, she'll pull together some women in her network, a small group, and she'll just schedule a Zoom or Skype with us and we'll all connect that way. And, you know, there'll usually be a few people on the call that I know or I've crossed paths with, and some people I don't know at all. And it's a great opportunity. You know, it's really, you look at her as somebody that's really a connector. She's bringing people together. So if you can do something like this, it doesn't have to have a big kind of cause or organization behind it. If you can take some people that maybe you think should get to know each other and just schedule an online event, that can be something that's very helpful from a networking standpoint. This is also a great time to check out a lot of organizations. So obviously this one is a great one to join if you aren't a member, but you know, a lot of times when you're out of work, you have to be really choosy with what you decide to join because there's obviously costs involved in membership and events. So you have to be mindful of that, you know, and be on a budget a lot of times when you're looking for work. But there's a lot of organizations right now that are offering free events to non-members because they're doing them virtually. Or maybe they're saying that you can attend, one event virtually for free, or maybe at a reduced cost. So look at those kinds of things that are going on. I know, if there's women out there on the call, I'm sure some of the people on the call are women. I'm a member of an organization called Elevate Network, which I love. I've been a member for a number of years. They have a last Friday of the month virtual breakfast, and they've opened that up to non-members for free. So, that's just one example. So look at the organizations. If you don't see that they're offering something for free and you're not in a position to join right now, it never hurts to reach out and just say, I'm considering joining this organization. I'm out of work, or I just graduated. Is there something I can take advantage of? Is there either a reduced price membership? Maybe there's a young professional rate, or can I attend something for free? And you never know what's going to happen. So it's worth a try. Make sure that you're utilizing social media. We're all on social media, obviously, but make sure you're utilizing it in the right way and that you're doing it consistently. You want to be thought of as a thought leader in the industry that you're trying to stay in or that you're trying to get a job in right now. So make sure that you're consistently posting things that would make people look to you as an expert. And also just post good news. People need good news right now, right? There's a website that I have come into my inbox every day called Morning Smile. And it just kind of tells you feel good stories. So, you could subscribe to something like that and just post something positive every day. And you would be surprised at the people that will engage and comment with that just because they're happy to see some good news. Make sure, like I said, you're staying in touch with people, and then go old school. So as I said, I'm in my 40s. I do text people and email and obviously do all the things that you guys do out there, but I also still handwrite cards and postcards to people. I think that's more important than ever right now. It's a way that you can always make you stand out from a networking standpoint, but especially right now, when most of us are home almost all the time, and you go to your mailbox and all that comes is bills. So it would be great if you go to your mailbox and you get a beautiful, card that's trying to cheer you up from somebody, or just, it was great talking to you. One of the weeks of quarantine, I just picked like 10 or 12 girlfriends from my network and sent postcards with a inspiring quote and just said like, hey, I'm here. If you need anything, I hope everything's okay for you. I just wanted to let you know I was thinking about you. So that's really a way that you can distinguish yourself from a networking standpoint. So think about going old school if you're not doing that already. We will advance the slide. And just quickly, you guys are going to get these slides, but when I talked about the talking points and things that can be good to talk about right now, these are some questions that I think can be helpful. So we don't have to read all of them, but look them over, and then when you get the slides, these are some ideas of questions that you can ask people right now that I think would be appropriate because we're in this kind of strange time. Try not to just ask people, how are you doing? Because a lot of people, let's face it, are not doing that great right now. So asking people what the highlight of your day or week has been can be something that's more targeted and that can open some positive dialogue. And so that brings us to our second exercise, our next slide. What has been a silver lining of quarantine for you? So we'll wait, if anybody wants to respond to that. What's been a silver lining of quarantine for you? So I think for me, the silver lining has been, usually my days are spent at events and meetings and networking, and I'm almost never home. So this is actually, I've been in my house 10 years, and I'd say the last 4 months has been the most time I've ever spent in my house. So, that's obviously at this point, I would love to spend more time out of my house, but it's been nice to have less of a schedule and have more control over my own time and really think about what's important. So that's been something that's been nice for me. Anybody else out there have any responses to that?
We've got enjoying family time, working from home in my own space and reconnecting with old friends, being able to spend time with our parents.
Yes.
I know for myself that getting projects done that weren't on the list, painting those rooms. Let's see. I think I might have gotten everything that's been typed in right now.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, the projects are great. You know I enjoy getting on social media and seeing people's home improvement projects and banana bread and all the fun things that people have been doing, right? But yeah, also I think a lot of it for people comes down to the people, right? They've had more time to quality, connect with people, family, friends. I just saw on social media, a friend of mine was saying, she's been connecting every Saturday night with people that she went to high school with. They weren't even doing that before quarantine. But now this is a regular thing they do on Saturday nights. They all have, their cocktails or mocktails and they all connect. So yeah, this is a great time to do that. And I encourage all of you to continue to do that. Our next slide is investing in yourself. And again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I do want to leave some time for questions. But I think investing in yourself is so important right now. I have done some certifications and courses myself. Even though I've done webinars and things like that before, I decided since all my work went online, it was important for me to get certified. So I did a certification in virtual presentation as a virtual presenter. I did a certification in hospitality and tourism. I just finished one on social media marketing. So there's so many things that you can be doing. I gave some examples here. There's a link to an article on online classes, Coursera, Udemy, and then HubSpot Academy is one that I have used. And a lot of them have either free or low cost things that you can do so that you can kind of up your game on your LinkedIn and your resume and have new skills, new certifications, new ways to distinguish yourself. So for the virtual job hunting, which is our next slide, try to have those informational interviews, take the time to work on your LinkedIn. As I said, stay visible. Make sure that you're looking at using remote terminology buzzwords. So if you have skills, in using some of these some of the technology that people are using now, even if it's something, like Excel or a CRM system, or, that you have experience being a remote presenter or whatever that may be, make sure that you're highlighting those things because they're more important than ever. Look at the industries that are hiring. So, some of the industries that are really hiring right now, obviously, are things in tech and customer service. I know a lot of you out there are looking for different types of jobs. But, there are industries that are doing very well right now. And then you take the other side of that, which is something like hospitality and restaurants that are really struggling right now. So if you're looking for jobs in those fields, that may be more challenging. I mentioned there might be some ways to look at making some money right now if you're not working. I love Upwork. If you're not familiar with it, you can put up a profile and either apply to specific jobs people are looking for, or just put your expertise out there and then work on specific projects. You can set your rates, you can see what rates people are charging for the kind of work you're doing. And that might be a nice kind of side hustle to get you by as you look at finding a job. And then virtual volunteering. I think volunteering in general is a great way to network. So virtual volunteering, there's so many things that people need right now that you can do without even leaving your house. And one quick example I wanted to give that I found is an organization called Letters Against Isolation. And the concept of that is basically every week, if you get to be one of their letter writers, they will send you people that you can write letters to that are seniors, that are in nursing homes that aren't allowing visitation. And you can basically be a pen pal and send them cards to brighten their day. So that's something that doesn't take a ton of time, but it's really like a feel-good thing. So that's just one example. We can advance. Hopefully I'm going to get through this. We can go.
Jennifer, I just wanted to jump in and let you know we're about 10 minutes.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to take a little bit of extra time just because we hit that snag with the slides and I want to make sure we get through. But if there's other questions, hopefully we can either stay on longer or I'm happy to individually answer questions later. We can go through this one really quick. I mentioned earlier, I think the key thing that's going to be helpful to you, not only in networking, but finding a job, is confidence. One of my idols is Serena Williams. Every year, of course, except for this year, I go to the US Open, and this is me modeling her. So, all of you out there might have somebody else that you emulate as far as confidence and leadership. And, for me, that person is Serena Williams. But try to channel that, as you're networking and as you're doing a lot of this virtual stuff, especially the virtual interviewing, try to channel, who is that person that evokes confidence for you, that you really can look to as somebody, as a role model, and try to get in that right frame of mind. So virtual interviews, which is our next slide. 86% of organizations are incorporating virtual technology now because of COVID. So the reality of that is that your first impression is going to be virtual, and that can be challenging, right? Because I mean, in person, you have that engagement and the interaction, and online, you're in a box. It's just people are just getting that impression of you. So, it's really important to show your personality and also to beware of, the kind of the pitfalls of not making that great first impression. It is really hard to undo a bad first impression. So you really want to get it right the first time with these virtual interviews and just virtual networking in general. The next slide is just like a funny thing I had. Some of you may have seen it. There's this reporter, this was in April, Will Reeve. He's actually the son of the late Christopher Reeve, who was the original Superman. And he did his segment, as a lot of us have been doing networking at home, business on the top and not business on the bottom, not realizing that people could see he had no pants on. So beware of no pants. So obviously with a first impression, hopefully none of you will get in this situation, but I just thought this was like something lighthearted to show people. For virtual interviews, you really want to treat it as a face-to-face. So look at things like your lighting and your background. Practice the tech. I mean, we practiced the tech here and still something went wrong. So, people are understanding. Things can always go a little bit awry, but make sure that you're able to adapt and snap back from that, and make sure that you are putting your best foot forward. Learn the platforms the best you can. Dress, for as though you were doing an in-person interview, at least as much as people can see. But, I think sometimes from a confidence standpoint, like right now, I'm sitting in a dress I would wear to go speak. Did I have to wear a dress? No, but it makes me feel like I'm in the zone as a speaker, as a trainer. So whatever makes you feel good, like make sure that you're doing that. Make sure that you have those talking points, your cheat sheet, information that you want to get out, the questions you want to ask. All of that should be things that you look at for having a successful virtual interview. LinkedIn. So I mentioned earlier some LinkedIn that we want to look at, now that you have the time to do it, revisit that. So, obviously at this point of the world, everybody's on LinkedIn. Pretty much, I'm sure all of you have a profile pic, make sure that it's current. Look at the title and the keywords and the summary, see if there's ways that you can update that and distinguish it. I gave the example of getting certified as a virtual presenter. So now when you go to my profile, one of my keywords is certified virtual presenter, because that's something that's important for me and my business. So what are those things that you can put that will be grabbing for somebody else to look at you as a candidate? Try to start posting, if you're not already, some video, have some video that lives in your profile, maybe post some short videos on some expertise in your industry, maybe post an intro video. Like you could even, if you're reaching out to people for various networking, you could post by email. You could send somebody, instead of just sending an email saying, hi, this is who I am, I'd love to talk to you. You could send a quick video to people. Look at publishing on LinkedIn. Look at the fact whether you have recommendations or endorsements. I've noticed a lot of people, even who are very accomplished and far along in their careers, a lot of times you go to their profiles and they still don't have many endorsements, and especially recommendations. It's a great time to ask for them. So start making those lists of people that you can ask for recommendations and getting those in your profile. Those are things that people will really look at if you're looking for jobs. Obviously, you want to be involved in your LinkedIn groups, follow hashtags that are industry related, and use the LinkedIn prompts for further relationships. What do I mean by that? When you get on LinkedIn in the morning, if you haven't realized it already, LinkedIn will tell you things. It's so-and-so's birthday. So-and-so is celebrating a job anniversary. They've been at their job 10 years. This person was just published in the ABA journal. So LinkedIn will prompt you. So those are great reasons to have that follow-up with people. If LinkedIn tells you it's someone's birthday, reach out and say, I saw it was your birthday. Happy birthday. Do you have any plans? I just wanted to wish you a happy birthday. So look for those prompts that LinkedIn will give you, which give you reasons to get in touch with people. And the last thing I just want to touch on is, like I said, maintaining positivity. I love Gretchen Rubin. If you don't know her, she wrote a book called The Happiness Project and a few other books. She has a podcast. She's somebody that really gets it and tries to make it fun. So I just read this article of hers, and she said, find a fun challenge, especially during this time. a fun challenge could be something like learning a new instrument or language. I just took up tennis again after many years. So I've been taking tennis lessons outside. So find a fun challenge that can actually help you maintain a positive outlook. Do things for other people's, plan for later. So for a lot of us, including myself, we've had to cancel things that are important to us, vacations and such. Plan for now, plan for later now. So scientifically, in your mind, you will be happier if you start planning now, even if it's for a trip you're taking a year from now. So take time to, look at restaurants, tourist attractions, resorts, whatever it is, plan for later, and that will make you happier. And as I said, be patient, be kind to yourself. I also have Jess Ekstrom listed as a resource. She wrote a great book called Chasing the Bright Side, and also has a lot of resources. So I encourage you to look for that as well. And I think that's it. I'm sorry we went a little over. This is my contact information. I'm sorry about the snag, but hopefully we got through everything. I will look at questions now for as long as we can stay on here, but if we can't, or if some of you have to go, I encourage you to look at my contact information. Please reach out to me personally. I'd be happy to help you answer any questions, whether you have them today or if later, you have questions as you pursue your job search more or something. I'm familiar with a lot of organizations and things in the area. So if there's something you want to ask me about, whether it's an event, or maybe an organization, and whether it would be useful for you or helpful for what you're trying to do, I'm happy to help you in any way I can. So I see that there's a lot in the chat box, which I assume is probably some of the answers to the exercises. So maybe we'll focus now on the questions.
I'm going to jump in and say, give you this question that we have. What are your suggestions on networking for people that aren't extroverts?
Yes. Okay, so I think my best suggestion from what I said already would be to have those talking points, to make sure that you don't get lost in not having what to say ready, and also look for those opportunities that aren't specifically, networking related. Like if you're somebody that doesn't want to get on a virtual 50-person event with a chamber of commerce because that's not something you're comfortable with, schedule those one-on-ones instead. And also look for those non-business opportunities. If you're not involved in anything, this is a great time to think about, what is it that makes you happy? Is there something that you would always wanted to get involved in, a hobby or a different nonprofit cause? Is it homeless animals, or is it children's causes? What would be something that would bring you purpose and fulfillment? And I think that makes it a lot easier to talk to people when you have that commonality with them, and you don't have to try to search for what you have in common or what to say. You'll already have that with them. So look for those opportunities.
I think you might have covered this, but I do want to jump back to it. Percentage of your day to network. I think you were saying, what, 20 to 30 minutes, or on LinkedIn, or go ahead, you answer. You're the—
Yeah, I think for LinkedIn, it would be a great habit. When I talked at the beginning of that about that Atomic Habits book, and I think that's going to be life-changing for me. I usually don't say that about books, but I highly recommend it. In any case, I would say, since we're all home right now and we're not on as much of a schedule as we usually are, if you can start incorporating spending 20, 30 minutes a day on LinkedIn, or even 20, 30 minutes 2 or 3 times a week, I think that will go such a long way if that's a habit that you can do now and then continue with. What should you be doing during that time? Looking for those prompts about people's promotions and birthdays, getting in touch with people, maybe publishing something, obviously writing a status update, going through, commenting on people's other posts, sharing people's information, sharing events. Take the time to do that. Networking in general, I think for right now, especially if you're job hunting, you should spend, I would say 2 hours a day. That may seem like a lot to people, but I would say try to do at least the one meeting that I talked about. I would say try to do a few meetings. Think about, what you can do. Can you publish an article? Can you tape a video? Can you interact with people in a virtual networking meeting? So, I would say it encompasses all of that. Maybe that's not something that's sustainable, once you get a job or once we're not home and in quarantine. But for right now, I would say look to do 2 hours a day.
Thanks. I have another one. Struggling with, when is the best time to log on for video calls and interviews?
early. So, and again, we did that today. We had a practice yesterday. We logged on early today. And as you saw, there was still a snafu. But the earlier that you can log on, I think you will be comfortable. You mentioned what should people do that are introverts. If you're somebody that's nervous with networking, that is also something that can be helpful in a virtual setting. So get on early, get familiar with the technology, be one of the first people in the room. So I've been on a lot of networking meetings where, even online, the first 5-10 minutes is just getting to know people, or maybe they separate you into smaller Zoom rooms or things like that. So if you were an introvert and you were going to live events, if you get there early and it's going to be a 200-person event, but you get there when there's 8 or 10 people there, it's a lot easier to start to talk to people. And that doesn't change in a virtual setting. So try to get there early, learn the technology, get comfortable. And that way you're kind of in that right frame of mind to put your best foot forward.
Let me see. One more, I think, might have just popped up another. Okay, we have another question here. As someone who is looking to identify the next big goal in my career, do you have any advice on how networking could help?
Someone who's looking to identify. So if you have a goal in mind, I would say if there's a specific goal you have in mind, think about the people in your network that can help you towards that goal. So I'll use my Tedx Talk as an example. I would take time through my networking to look at who in my network has already done a TEDx talk or a TED talk and talk to them. How did you do it? Where did you apply? What am I doing wrong? Like, can you look over this application? What do you think of my big idea for TED? Give me some feedback. So that was my goal. So I think, finding people in your network that can help you towards that goal and offer advice. I think from a networking standpoint, this is a great time to do that. Maybe you wanted to write a book. Maybe you're trying to get published in Forbes. You can do so many specific searches on LinkedIn. So you can find people that are not only in certain industries, but maybe, have certain things or skills that you want to aspire towards. So to the extent that you either know of people in your network or can find people through 2nd or 3rd degree connections on LinkedIn, this is a great time to kind of pick people's brains and, talk to them about the kind of goal you have in mind and what advice they have for you. Don't try to reinvent the wheel by yourself. Look at people who have accomplished that goal already and try to absorb as much as you can from them.
Does anybody else have any other questions to add to the box? I mean, Jennifer, I feel so inspired. I think
I'm so glad.
Phenomenal job. And lots of great information that came across tonight. So we'll just give it one other second here to see if anybody else is typing away something, but I definitely was writing some great notes, and I hope others feel inspired as well.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, as I said, I wouldn't be being honest with myself, or I think anything that people are going through right now, to not say that there are days where it's a complete struggle right now. Even somebody like me who's been through a lot and tries to stay positive and is all about change. Like, I have my days where I'm on the couch, like eating chocolate, talking, having full conversations with my dogs and watching Bravo reruns. Like, it happens, right? So don't feel bad about that. Give into it when you need to, and just try to stay on focus with your goals, like doing a little bit every day. And just know that as long as you're moving towards that and you're being proactive and you're being positive, it's going to happen. So, I mean, I wish all of you the best. As I said, I'm happy to, and I mean it, you'll get these slides, but if you have other questions or you just want to connect with me, or there's things I can help with, introductions I can make, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you. Thank you for tonight. Thank you very much.
All right.
We got thank yous. We got thank yous coming through to you. So thank you. Everybody has a great night. And like Robin said, there's going to be a series on August 4th about, to graduate school or not. And we have a COVID presentation next week. So thank you. Follow up on Philly PRSA. And we just thank you. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And I can't wait until we're maybe able to bump elbows and say together in person.
I look forward to meeting a lot of you in person when we're able to do that again.
That's for sure. Thank